Okay, so good evening, guys. So today we are going to we are going to write the MapReduce code for the what count problem. So as I've told you in the previous class that for writing a MapReduce code in Java or MapReduce job in Java, you need three classes. You need to write the mapper class, wherein you will define the map method. And the importance of the map method is it receives a record in a key value pair. You you as a developer will receive that input key and the input value, and according to business logic, whatever you want to do with the input key and input value, you will output key value pairs. Okay, that is intermediate key value pairs. And then you need to have a reducer class which receives the key value pairs emitted from the mapper. And you have the grouping operation which what it does, it basically forms a key and a list of values. And in the reducer class you have to write the reduce method. Okay, and the third bit is the driver class, which actually consists of the main method. And main method is this entry point of any Java application. So the main method here, here you will see that how do you form the Java object. Nowhere we have mentioned when we were writing yesterday the mapper and reducer class that we want to use the input format, which input format we want to use it. So although necessary things, basically I always say it's a boilerplate code, because you have to do everything. You have to provide, you will see that you have to say for this job which class is going to act as my mapper class, which class is going to act as my reducer class, what is the output key value pair from the my mapper class, what is the output key value from reducer class, what is my input format, how many reducers I want, where is my input data, where my results are going to store. Everything you are going to say, or you are going to mention in this main method or the driver class. So we are going to write all these three things today. And tomorrow we will submit this job onto a cluster. So tomorrow we will bring up our Hadoop cluster, and we are going to submit um, our code onto Hadoop cluster and see the output. So for writing the MapReduce code in Java, we want three things. We are going to we require Eclipse. That's our IDE, integration development environment. So for various languages you have various IDEs. So Eclipse, preferably for Java. NetBeans also can be used. Then for building the Java code, Eclipse anyway will have this building the Java code and all, but I will be explicitly using the Maven, which is a which is the industry standard, and I would say it's a de facto standard for building the code, for building the Java code. Previously, the de facto standard before Maven, it was an Ant build. Okay, now the de facto standard for building the Java code is Maven, Maven. So this is we require. So building, compiling, whatever you want to say, the Java code. And what else we require? That's it. We require two things. So yeah, so for Eclipse anyways, if you want to run it, you need to have the JDK installed. So we are going to use the JDK 1.8. And irrespective of whatever machine you are using, I'm using Mac. So if you are using Windows, you have to get the Maven, you have to accordingly get the Maven jars. And you need to see that how JDK needs to be installed. So I have covered already the JDK how to install in my previous lectures. So when you install Ambari and all, you might have seen that how to install JDK. But if in the hands-on document also there is a section that how to install JDK, you can go with that installation as well. But for Windows, it will be little different. I'm not covering it here. But if you find difficulty while installing the JDK or Eclipse on Windows or Maven, then just let me know. I'll help you out. So I am working with Eclipse. Let's show me. Let me just show you. I am so you can work with the which version of Eclipse I am using. I am using Eclipse Mars 2.release. So this is my Eclipse version. Go with the latest and the greatest one. So download Eclipse IDE for Java developers. You can actually, so whatever the download links here, you can see that here, right? So whichever machine or OS you are using, you can actually go with that. Windows 32, Windows 64, Mac OS, Linux 32-bit, Linux 64-bit. So whatever you are using, you can download that. You can always go with the JDK 8. So download JDK. So again, you can use download JDK 8. That's the latest JDK. And again, whichever OS you are using, 86, 64, Windows, or whatever, you have to accept the license, and then you can download the necessary JDK for your OS. And then download the Maven 3.2.5. I think that's the latest. Let me just download Maven download page. Click on that first link. Again, whichever OS you are using here, binary tar.gz, binary zip source, um, you can use whatever, right? You can use according to your OS. Here it's not an OS specific. Here you can, for the Windows, you can actually use this binary zip archive. Okay, so that's your 3.5.0. So let me just show you in my, so my, if you see here, Maven version, MVN minus minus version. So that's your 3.3.9. So that's your 3.3.9. And if I say Java minus version, that's 1.8.0. So on my machine, this is my Maven version, and this is my JDK version or Java version 1.8. 1.8 is means JDK 8. This is a command Maven minus minus version to see what is the version of your Maven you are using. This is your Java version. Okay. Okay. Now, for creating a Mavenized project, I generally, no one stops you to create the project the way you want. You can actually go and open your Eclipse. Let's say switch workspace. So no one stops you here to create the project, Java project, with having one source folder without packages and anything. No one stops you, right? But we are going to do a standard way, or the way you are going to write the project in Java, the standard way, or the right. So for that, we actually, since it's a Maven build, and so Maven requires the projects. It's not mandatory, but generally, the standard is that if the if we are going to have a Maven project, it generally have some source folder like this. If you see that here, source test Java, source main Java, and inside the source main Java, you have packages, all the class files. You actually create a package and you put your class files over there. You put your Java files or class files over there. Okay, no one stops you. You in your project, you can have only one source folder by name src. You might not have package also, but that's not the standard way. Okay, and then that's one thing. So we are going to create a standard Mavenized project. which has the POM and everything. So this is my blog where I keep putting whatever I learn, new things and all. So you can actually see here. So you can go there. I mean, there are a lot of interesting things which I have posted. So uh, okay. So this is the creating a Java project. So I generally run this run this command, and it creates the project automatically for me. And now I'm gonna you can also use the same way. Okay. Now we will. This is my workspace of Eclipse. Okay, and now I want to create a project by name word count mapper. So here, uh, since you have already installed Maven, so Maven actually requires a group ID, which is a project packaging. If you see that here, it's mentioned. You don't have to do anything here. I'm pasting the same command in the chat box. You can keep it for your reference, so that the next time when you do it, you also follow the same steps. Okay. So here you are saying that Maven and what kind of architecture type you want to generate. So this is you just say Maven archetype colon generate. Group ID is nothing but the package. What package you want to use it, that's your project packaging. So package like com dot your company name, let's say company name xg, and what count or mr. That's your could be a package, it could be anything. Then this is your actual project name, and my project name could be, let's say, what count project, which I'm going to create it. So that's my project name. Everything remains the same. So the group id, I'm going to give it as com dot x com dot training dot what count. That's my package. And artifact id, I'm going to give it as, that's artifact id is nothing but the project name. So word count is my project name. That's it, and it will create a Maven project for me. And you don't have to do anything. It will automatically create the project structure for us. So that's, so we don't have to go to Eclipse and then create the Java project structure for us. So this particular command will create the Mavenized project, Java project for us. Should not take this much time. Or this Maven version does not support this. Maven minus minus version. Okay. Okay, let us not waste the time here by getting the commands. I can, that's one way of getting a Java project. Let me figure out what is wrong with this command. I'll take some time, so let us not waste time here. What I can do, if I am not able to, so that's command will that has some problem, so don't worry about that. Will fix it later. Now how can I, with the Eclipse, how can I create the project? I can go to my, so this is your Eclipse. Hits after you create your basic things. It will not have this. I have these projects on my left hand side, but when you create it for the first time, you might not see any projects there. Okay, so I create file. I'm very sorry, file, new Java project. So here you can see that here no Java project. I can click on other. When I click on other, it gives me Java project. Yes, this is my Java project. The project name, let me give it as a word count mapper. Sorry, word
So,
count, yeah.
so we can create the Maven project from Eclipse also, right? Using M2.
M2E plugin. M2
Yeah,
sub.
that also we can
Yeah,
do, right?
yeah, that also we can. I don't have that M2 plugin with me. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So
Thanks so much.
yeah, project name. Then you can have a next. You okay? This is fine. You can click on this. That's, so it has automatically get a SRC folder, right? I can click on the finish. Yes, and then it creates a project like this. If you open this, if you click on your this particular triangle here, it gets open. It has a SRC folder, but the Maven project does not, it does not work like this. So it has to have a source main resource, source main Java. So you actually delete this and create a new project, new pack, a new source folder, new source folder, and you say source main Java. For every project you have to do the same thing. That's it. And once you do the source main Java, inside this you create you create your package like com dot training dot word count mapper, word count. That's it. Not word count mapper, word count. So that's your uh, what do you say, that's your package. And inside this package you can create your class files, like the way we have given. Let's say class, I want to place my word count mapper. I want to create word count reducer. But please understand, I cannot write the code until unless I use the jars from the Hadoop. I need to dependent jars, right? I cannot use that. I cannot write my MapReduce code until unless I have the Hadoop jars with me. And for that, we will use Maven. So we will use the form.xml, wherein we are going to provide the dependency new, and then you have new class wherein I will have a word count driver. And in this driver, this is, it consists of the main method. So I can actually click on this public static void main method, so it will automatically create for me that main method for me. Okay, I need this is required in the driver code, correct. Now to have the jars of the Hadoop, because now this is just a normal Java project, but to write the code which is understandable by your Hadoop framework, you need to have the Hadoop jars. You need to extends mapper, you have to have those classes, right? Yesterday I was writing it, extends mapper, extends reducer. So I don't have those jars right now with me. So for that, we are going to create the dependencies for my project. What are the various jars I need? So for those jars, I will use the dependency, and that is done through your Maven. Okay, so that dependencies and everything will be downloaded Maven, but Maven understands this pom.xml. This particular XML is present in the root. So this is your root directory. Under the root directory of your uh, project, so you actually place that pom. You can place the pom.xml anywhere, but generally it's a standard to place in the root directory, so that under the root directory you go and build your project. You build your project. So okay, now for the first time, I mean to say, if you open this pom.xml, which is required by your Maven, if you see here, we are since we have cut copy pasted, right? So I have to change something like this. Remember, when I was running the command, it was asking the group ID, correct? So it's a same group ID. So I will, the group ID is nothing but the package, and I have just given the package as com.training.whatcount mapper. Sorry, what, sorry, why I'm saying mapper today, what count. And my project name is what count. That's my project name. That's your version of the jar, 1.0.1.0 hyphen snapshot. Okay, uh, okay, we need the HDP version, guys, that which version of HDP we are using it. Because for using the okay, now coming back to dependencies, let's go back. I mean to say, here if you see, um, what all dependencies we require, and we need this dependency since we are going to deploy our jars on the Ambari, right? So we need the Ambari compatible jars, because there are a lot of HDP versions, right? So HDP 2.3, 2.2, 2.1, and which version of the HDP we are gonna run it, we need that particular information.
So
Okay.
actually, I have doubt here on this wood dependency. For example, if we are, using the HDFS specific jar, so can we use the jars which are provided by Apache Hadoop wood distribution,
No,
or it
no.
has to be specific to
Yes,
the distribution which we are using?
yes, exact. It has to be specific to that distribution. So which version of HDP you are using, and that's why you see that here we define the repository section in our pom.xml, that all the jars which you don't find it, whatever jars we are going to define below, you will see that if they don't find in the maven common repositories, then you actually search this repository to get the jars. So all these jars, Hadoop HDFS, Hadoop Common, Hadoop MapReduce Client Core, Hadoop MapReduce Client Common, Hadoop Yarn Common, Hadoop Yarn Client, Hadoop Yarn API. Okay, we don't require Edge-based jars. I can omit, I can delete this jar. I need the MR unit. We'll talk for our unit testing. And okay, we are packaging the shade plugin. Okay, actually the scope. You have to actually, the guys who are not familiar with the pom.xml, you actually have to spend some time in understanding. But I will, as and when we'll write more and more more and more projects, you will understand this pom.xml. But this pom.xml, you write it once and it will be used across all the projects. Okay, so I'll talk about the scope provided, because scope I'll talk about later, because I'm creating a shaded jar here. Shaded jar is nothing but the fat jar, and here to just give you more information, that it will the jar will be very heavy. It will consist of all the dependent jars. So generally, I don't require these jars to become as part of my jar. So I can actually say scope as provided, which means that don't add these jars into my jar. Okay, these jars will be provided at the runtime, because when we are going to run on the cluster, these jars will all anyways be present. And that's why we have given as a uh, now what do you say, scope as provided. And here we are giving the argamache mr unit. It is just for testing, so I have given the scope as test. There is one more scope which is of type compile. That's fine, but right now I don't want these jars to be added as a part of my as a part of my big jar. So I want, that's why I given a scope as provided. Okay, for this HDP 2.6, which version I'm not sure here. So what we do now is we need to let me just bring up my cluster, and let's see that which version of HDP we are using, and then we can, accordingly we will proceed. But it doesn't start. It will take some time to bring my MRE, but doesn't stop me to build my code. So if you just observe here, this is our group ID, this is our artifact ID. That's nothing but our project name. We are going to package as jar. It could be packaging, could be zip packaging, could be a war file. And this is a version of the my jar 1.0 hyphen snapshot. This is how you actually create variables kinds of thing in your pom.xml, having these tags. Then you have providing a repository, because we are going to download from the Hortonworks repository. The jars, Hadoop jars, are going to be downloaded from the Hortonworks repository. So this is the way how you do it. If I am using a Cloudera, let's say I am want to deploy my code on Cloudera as well, I have to get the jars of Cloudera. So I will also provide the repository, but the ID and the name and the URL will be different. And what all dependencies I require for writing my MapReduce code? I might require, I have taken everything, whatever I have it, but only minimal jars are required. But I have taken Hadoop HDFS, Hadoop Common, Hadoop MapReduce Client Core, all the artifact IDs I have taken, all the projects. If you see that here, these are the artifact ID represents your project. So there is a project by name Hadoop MapReduce Client Common. I have taken that jar, and the version is HDP.version. So what is it, HDP.version? HDP.version is defined over here 2.6.0, but I don't know which version of HDP we have actually working on. Oh, so for that I have to bring up my cluster, and then I will appropriately change the version of the HDP. I don't have to start the other two nodes. Okay, but
So
yeah,
you were mentioning about shaded jar.
yeah.
If you don't mind, could you please tell it again?
Shaded jar basically means it's a fat jar. um, what it does, it will all the dependencies. So when it is going to create your jar, it is going to combine all the jars into one single jar. So let's say it will, when I'm going to create my word count jar, so if I don't provide the scope as a provided, what will happen, it will it will package this jar into my jar also. It will package Hadoop MapReduce client core jar also. It will package this jar Hadoop MapReduce client common, all the jars which have provided dependency. It will package it. So what will happen, the size of the jar will become very high, right? So that's why so that is known as a shaded jar or a fat jar. It will combine, it will create a very one big jar, and you use it will create one big jar which has all the dependencies dependent jars. When you go for that kind of mechanism, when you know that the jars will not be present in the class path, so when the jars are not present in class path, then you provide all the jars, so that it is provided when the jar, when your jar runs, it will provide, it will automatically be taken, because that's a big fat jar. But when you know that these jars, when I'm going to deploy into my Hadoop cluster, it will anyways be present there, why would I package it with my jar? So that's my whole point, that I have given a scope as provided.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks, so.
yeah. Now I have given the pom, I'll share this pom.xml to you guys. So let me just share, very sorry, I'll share this pom.xml to you, and then you can use this pom.xml the way we the and you can put it in your project. Okay. Now what I can do here, I am inside my workspace mr hive cd word count, and that's my what do you say? That's my project wherein I have a pom.xml. Wherever the pom.xml, you are going to run this command. So generally, I will tell you few commands which you have to run: Maven clean install or Maven package. This bin folder is really not required, you can delete it as well. This bin folder is created by your Eclipse. Maven clean install, that's the command which you will use it every time whenever you want to build your code. Maven clean install, or the other command which you can use, Maven package. Go with small things, so I'll always use Maven clean install, and then you will find Maven package is also being used for building your code. So Maven clean install, that starts building your code. Very and this is very wrong. It is, I have given something edgebase API one hyphen snapshot, so that means to say that my pom.xml has somewhere edgebase API, or it is not saved. The name is edgebase API. I have to change word count, right? Building word count 1.0 hyphen snapshot. The build is successful. Once you do the build is successful, you do an ls command, and here it's a target. So that basically inside the target folder, you will see that your jar has been created. word count 1.0 snapshot shaded dot jar, and this is dot snap without shaded, and this is actually we are going to use it. Now let us see the shaded jar, as I've explained you, whether it has the scope provided, right? So let me just create a directory just for the explanation purpose. MB word count snapshot shaded, and I am just moving to my temp folder, and I can extract this jar. I can extract this jar by using command jar minus xvf word count. If you see here, it does not have anything other than the classes, right? It's a very small jar. Now, what I will do to just to clarify the concept of the shaded jar, since you have also asked me, so just for the sake of explanation, that if I remove that scope as provided, what's gonna happen? Let us see that. So here, I will again run the command maven clean install. Whenever you run the command maven clean, it will delete the target folder. So if you see that, including these many jars, right? Um, ls delete target, ls minus ltr. See the size of this jar. It is how big it is. Uh, this is in bytes, right? So KB 39 MB jar. Let me again just go there. mkdir temp and mb shaded jar temp, and let us go inside the temp folder, and this time again I am gonna extract my jar minus xvf word count.
So, when we create a shaded jar, do we need to mention any target or the values in any of the parameter or in form.xml, or by default, if we don't mention provided scope, it will create the shaded jar?
See this, yes, you have to provide a shaded plugin. You need to use the shaded plugin. Okay, you need to use the shaded plugin first, and then it will create automatically the shaded jar. If the scope is not provided, if there is no scope which is provided, then it will automatically add the jar. Can you see that here? And if you have observed the previous one and the current one, the size of the jar has increased, and here there's a lot of jars are there. Com, it has included all the classes. Okay, is that clear? Is the
Yes,
concept
so
of a
but
shaded jar? Yeah.
one question, but like when you install the Maven, you didn't install the shaded plugin, or it was already in your environment.
No. You if the shaded plugin is not there, it will automatically download. No, so you need to use the plugin management like this. So this is your Maven plugin, so it will be automatically downloaded the Maven plugin from the repository. You don't have to
Okay,
download.
so it means
You don't have to download anything with respect to the Maven. Maven will try to download. If it is not able to download, it will throw an exception. But but remember everything. Can you mute? Screen is flying. No screen is flying. So Maven will download each and everything. Okay.
Vipin, you have to mute yourself, I guess.
Okay. Now once you are there, so it will download, and so Maven clean, the clean command will automatically delete the target folder. So Maven clean will do nothing. It will just delete the folder. You can see that deleting. So it is deleting. There is no more. If you see that here, that there is target folder is gone. Now, so generally I delete it, and when you do a Maven install, it actually builds your code. So in a short, you can say Maven clean install. So clean will delete the directory, install will install it again. I don't need the shaded jar, as I've explained just now. So I will use the provided scope so that my jar size is less. And also, why I am using the provided scope? For a very simple reason, because these jars will anyways be present on my cluster. So that's the reason I am using as a scope as provided. Maven clean install. This is a very common command which you will use very often. You go inside target folder, do an ls minus ltr, and see the size of the jar. Previously, when I was shown you, when it is I have removed the scope, it was 39 MB. Now it is 4 KB jar. Okay, so you have built it. And one more common command, when one more very common you use it, is maven eclipse colon eclipse. And this you should understand whenever you are, this is required only once, one time. You just do a maven eclipse colon eclipse command and refresh your code. Right now, if you see your project, there is no external library. If you see that the above project and the below project, in my case, the reference libraries is not coming in my below. This is the project which I have just created, and this is a project which I have earlier created. You see the reference library present here. It does not have a reference library. So what you have to do is just run the maven eclipse colon eclipse command, and you just refresh this. You get the reference library. Reference libraries are those set of libraries which we have provided as a dependency. But you should be seeing here, I have not provided these many dependent jar. Then where the heck these jars are coming from? So you should understand that in the pom.xml, I have provided my dependencies, right? Here, like Hadoop HDFS is my dependency. But then but the Maven is very intelligent, because he it also brings the jars which these guys are dependent on, because without that jars it will not work, right? So I need this jar, along with that this jar, it will bring all those jars on which this guy is dependent on. So that's why you are seeing these many jars. Though in the dependency we have provided only few jars here, but it is bringing all the jars because my components are dependent on those jars. That's it. Yeah.
Uh,
Now,
so
yeah.
I have one question here. So, like we are giving only the top level dependencies, and the reference dependencies would be downloaded by the Maven. So, but when I run my jar in the uh, Hadoop cluster, would that reference dependency be provided by the cluster itself?
Of course, no, because there also, when you are whenever any class path Java project, or any when you are running on that, when you are running, then without the dependent jars, those guys will not work. Because Hadoop cluster, if it is running, then that means the dependent jars are already present. Right? Now, as I've told you, I need to know my HDP version. So what I do here, um, I will log into my Ambari, and I will figure out what is my version of my Ambari, or what is the version of HDP I'm using. Username admin, password admin. I can go to admin, stack and versions. I click on my stack and versions. I can go to my versions. The HDP version which I am using is 2.4.2.0. Okay, that's the version of my HDP. I'm not sure this should work. Okay, let us do one thing. Let us take up this version 2.4.20-258. That's the version of HTTP. So 2.4.2.0-258, and let us see that whether my builds is successful or not. Okay, it's downloading. You can see that. So it's gonna take some time to download. But it says that HTTP releases it does not available. So let me just figure it out. 2.4.2.0. 2.4.2.0. 2.4. Common. It's missing. It will not download it. So we will go with the latest version of 2.7.2 then. 2.7.2. It's downloading from the repo, Hortonworks and everything, but the exact stack version it is not able to download. This is the HDP stack which we are using. 2 dot sorry, this is the version of my HDP 2.4.20, but it is 2.7.1. This is a version of my HDFS. This is a version of my MapReduce, but actually it should work with the 2.4.2.0-258. Okay, anyways, when we will actually run our code on the cluster. If there any mismatch in the um jars, it will throw the exception. Okay, 2.3.00 was our earlier one. Then I think we have upgraded to 2.4.2.0. I'm gonna stop my cluster because we don't require today. Okay. So for the first time, when you are going to build it, since this jar will not be in a local box, so it's going to download everything from the net. So it's going to take too much of a time for the first time build. After that, since all the so when you do a Maven clean install, what happens? It download all the jars and puts onto your local box for the first time. Okay, but next time when you build it, it will check its repository whether this jar is present in its repository, which is on the local file system, which is on your box. Okay, whether it is present or not. If it is present, it will use that, or else it will download. So if you see that these jars which I have just given, it is not present, so it is downloading. It says that it is downloading here. And where these jars are stored, so these jars are actually inside your home, under your home directory of the user. So in my case, my home directory is users k sharma. In Windows, it would be somewhere under users desktop, whatever. So there is a folder, hidden folder by name m2. So cd.m2. So that's your repository and cd repository. And here all the jars are present. So it downloads all the necessary jars and and keep under this particular location. Everyone, .m2 repository will be there inside your users home directory on Windows. Similarly, everywhere it will be the same .m2 under repository. You will have that jars. Okay, and now here you have seen that build is successful here. So again, I can run my Maven eclipse colon eclipse command, so that then I will refresh, so that the new jars are reflected in my eclipse. I go and check Hadoop HDFS 2.7.2.jar, right? It has actually taken up. I can see that here. Okay, now word count mapper, word count reducer, and then now we're gonna write word count driver. So these are the necessary things which you need to have it, and that's what I have given you a little bit of overview of what is Maven, what is how do you do that build, what is the dependencies, and which stack version you're gonna use it. And I'll tell you more about the stack version, why it is not getting, or or maybe we are doing something wrong. That's which stack version we have to, which version of the HDP we're gonna use it. So I'll figure it out and then I'll let you know. But nevertheless, it is going to work for us. So we'll be able to write our MapReduce code. If you remember yesterday, I have explained you how to write the word count mapper and the word count reducer. What I'm going to do here is I will just cut copy paste the code. So word count mapper, I'll cut copy paste. I should not cut. I should only should not copy the package. Word count reducer. So this is okay. This is the driver code which I've already written. Okay. Now we will start from the beginning. Okay, and let us go back to the slides and see that um, what all things it has to say. So how do you write your mapper class? How do you write your reducer class? And then how do you write your driver class? The three things are required. We'll talk about the tool learner later, and then we'll see that how to launch the MapReduce job. I've already explained that how to write the mapper class, and I will directly jump to how to write the what is the driver code. Driver code is the actual class which has the main method. It has this class has the main method, and as we understand that the main method is the entry point, so you will have a main method, and this driver class consists of. So now to drive to write to submit a MapReduce job, you need to specify a lot of things, not just the mapper and the reducer code, where actually it consists of the business problem, but to run that mapper and reducer code, you have to tell that where is your name in the job tracker or resource manager running. You have to explicitly tell that's where my resource manager name node is your single point of a contact, and we don't want job tracker because that's your old one, but instead of that it's a resource manager. So resource manager is single point of a contact for your MapReduce job, and name node is a single point of a contact for HDFS operations. We need to tell. And anyone remember which property tells the address of the name node, address of the resource manager? It's your fs dot
fs
default
dot
default fs.
default.
Yeah, and I don't remember here a yarn dot resource manager dot something. I don't remember the name. Okay, then you're gonna create the job object, specify the input. So how do you create the job object? We'll see that. Then you need to specify the input format. The steps are not necessarily to be on the same order, but you all this everything specify the input format, setting mapper reducer class, specify the output key output value class, specify the reducer output key value class. This all these things has to be attached to the job object. So you need to create the first job object, and then you need to attach all this thing to the job object. Attach, that's basically nothing but setter method. Attach, when I say attach, you will have the setter methods with the job object, where you say job.set, job.set mapper class, job.set reducer class, job.set map output key class, job.set everything. So it's a setters attached to the job object. When I say attached to job object, I hope now that is clear. This job object will have the setter methods. Then finally you okay, so what all things you're going to provide, which class is going to act as a mapper class, which class is going to act as a reducer class. Then you specify what is your output key class from your mapper, what is your output value class from your mapper. You specify what is your reducer output key class, what is your reducer output value class. That means what is the key type which you are going to emit from the reducer, what is the value type you are going to emit from the reducer. Then you specify on which data set I want to run my MapReduce job. That's your input. And then you will also specify that on which where on the HDFS the results will be stored. On which where on HDFS your results will be stored. So you'll specify each and everything. Then you finally submit the job. Okay. So as I've told you that you have configuration object, right? You need to first get the configuration object, control space configuration. So here, which class? So you have a lot of classes which has the name configuration, but we are gonna use the one which is starting with org apache hadoop conf. Org apache hadoop conf. Can I see somewhere?
You have fourth from the top.
This one? No.
Yes.
Where is the commons configuration? Right, this one.
Okay.
This one. First one. Org apache I can create a new configuration. Okay, and one more thing here, guys. I am using the HA configuration, so our address of the name node will be different. fs.default we have to check in our cluster, so we'll see that tomorrow. We'll see that tomorrow, or yeah, our next class. Conf.set. I also have to set the address of my resource manager, which is again our resource manager is in HA state. If it is not, so we can always go to Ambari and check our resource manager address. So we'll see that later, that what is our resource manager address. Okay, so that's how you're going to set it. And then you say job object, you have to create the job object. That's your class. So org Apache Hadoop MapReduce. So please make sure from here there are two classes with the same name, job, and they are also in the same package. Can you observe this? Two classes, org Apache Hadoop MapReduce and org Apache Hadoop MapRed.job control, right? Can you see that here? Two classes. So please understand MapRed. Whenever you are seeing the MapRed, it's an old API. Whenever you're seeing the MapRed inside it, org Apache Hadoop MapRed, that's an old API. And whenever you see a MapReduce, that's a new API. And always use the new API, not the older API. We are going to write the code only in the new API. So always use the new API. And how do I figure it out? That if any time you will see two classes with the same name, then you always say org. You always see org Apache Hadoop. This will be the same, but you will see here MapReduce or MapRed. If it is a MapReduce, use that class. You will see that. Excuse me. So I'm gonna use the one which is as org Apache Hadoop MapReduce. That's my class. My object name is job, and I say job dot get instance. I'll take up this configuration, this constructor, job.getInstance, get configures. There is a red mark. I put my mouse on this red mark because as soon as I put save, it's showing me the red mark. I put my mouse and it's asking me to add the throws declaration because it's showing an exception. That's it. Now, the first thing, important thing you have to say, job. Uh, how does the job object will find the mapper and reducer class from the jar? So you need to say job dot set jar by class, set jar by class, and you provide the main class name. That's your main class. Word count driver. That's the same class which I have provided here. So you have to. This is very important, or else when you submit the MapReduce job on the cluster, it will not be able to determine the mapper and reducer class. So this class is very important. Now then you specify or set your mapper class. Set your mapper class to the job object. So you say job dot set mapper class. There's a method, all are setter methods, and which class is gonna act as it's your word count mapper. Word count mapper dot class. Then set your reducer class to the job object. Job dot set reducer class. And the reducer class name which we have already written is word count reducer dot class. Then set the output key class, or I would say set the mapper output key class type, mapper output key class to the job object. So what is the mapper output key class? I always put this particular sign, guys, so that it is linked to my editor, because there are several classes with the same name. So I always link this so that this editor is always linked to this project. You can see that it's highlighted. So I always make sure that this one is it's linked. So the editor is linked to my file name. So I know that which class, which project I'm changing. By XB, you can see that the same class names are present over here. I'm not changing them. So this is helpful. I can right click on here on top. What happened? Okay. I can close everything. I can right click and close others. So it has closed. Okay, so what count mapper output key class. This is my output key. This is my output value. Output key is text. Output value is int writable. So I'm gonna set it. Double click so that it maximizes here. So job dot set map output key class. All the methods are available, and my output map output key class is of type text. Control space text dot class. So guys, I am using control space to autocomplete. So whenever I want to type anything, any method name, any variable name, anything, I just say I just write few characters of that particular word, and then I press control space, so it will automatically tell me that if anything is present or not. Set the mapper output value class to the job object. So you say job dot set map output value class. Output value class I have just shown you, it's an int writable. Control space int writable dot class. Let me again verify, it's an int writable. Okay, let now reducer, the output key is text, output value is long writable. Okay, now set the reducer output key class to the job object. Job dot set, there is no reducer output key class, there is a set output key class. Set output key class, and it is just now I've shown you text dot class. Similarly, set the reducer output value class to the job object. Job dot set output value class, and that's a long writable dot class. Okay, and as I've told you, if you don't specify the input format, the default input format is your text input format. Let it, but anyways, let us set the input format. Set the input format to the job object. So here job dot set input format class text input format, right? Now here if you see, there will be again two classes with the same name. Okay, by god grace it does not come, but here if you text input format, here if you see, okay, I can see two classes. You can see that, right? One is on the top, another one is here, but it has a MapRed package here, so which we don't want to use because of the older API. If you see this, it has a MapReduce package, arc apache hadoop dot MapReduce. That means this is a newer API and we are gonna use this text output format dot class. Then finally specify the input path and the output path. Specify the input path, that is on which data set, on which input data we would like to run our MapReduce job, run this MapReduce job. Okay, so this is file input format. You have to spec something like this, you have to set it like this. So again, when I'm using file input format, you see that there are again two classes with the same name, file input format, first and the second one. But then again, I will choose the one which has a MapReduce. File input format dot set input path. I can use add input path add input path, the job object which I have taken, and it takes the path object. So you say new path of arcs of 0. I'll explain you what is this arcs of 0, and then specify the output format path. Specify the output path. That means the results of the the results of the MapReduce job will be saved under this directory, and this directory will be created on HDFS. So you say file output format, again two classes with the same name. You will see that here, file output format. Here you have a, here you see that it's a MapRed. You don't want to use that because that's an older API. You want to use this file output format. Check it's a MapReduce, yes, and you can remove these generics and then say set output path job, and it is new path of arcs of 1, and this arcs are nothing but my command line arguments which is coming from here. These arcs are, it's basically command line arguments. It means that when I'm going to run my this jar like this, Hadoop jar, I will give some jar name. I'll give a fully qualified name of my class, fully qualified driver class name. That is, this is my driver class name. I will give the fully qualified driver class name. Then I'll give the first argument, and then the second argument. These are my command line arguments. So the first argument will be my input data, and the second argument is my output directory where my results are stored. So this is your arcs of 0 which will be taken at runtime, and this is your arcs of 1 which is again taken at runtime, which we have mapped it here like this. Okay, so these are my command line arguments. So this will be taken care when I am going to run my command. So when I am going to run my job like this, so these things will automatically be populated over here, and then finally you submit the job. So till now it is, the job will not be submitted, so you have to submit the job now. So when the below code execute, when the below code gets executed, then only MapReduce job execution will start. Then only your jar gets submitted and MapReduce job executions will start. And how you do that? It's job dot wait for completion. Wait for completion, and I wanted the output, whatever you're doing. True means the boolean variable true means it will display the output onto the console. On the console, when it is running the job, it will display the what's happening. So app throws declaration. Okay, and that's it. Your code is done. You have written the driver code, you have written the mapper class, reducer class, and you have written driver class. And then you go to your project to run the command maven clean install. Once it creates a jar, now it is ready for the deployment. And we are going to see how we're going to deploy our this jar and then we are going to put some data onto our HDFS as an input data, and we will run this MapReduce job and then see the output. And right, so that's one way. And so that's what we're gonna see tomorrow in the next class. That's all for today. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
I have one question. See, when we run the sample examples provided by the do for distribution,
Uh-huh.
so there we don't have any driver class. I mean,
We
how
have
does that work?
no. It has a driver class. It does have a driver class. I'll show you tomorrow.
Fine, so
Yeah.
yeah, thanks so much.
Okay, guys. Let's meet next class. I'll let you know about the next class. Okay. Thank you very